Huawei has just introduced the new Mate 70 series. Let me tell you the specifications of each of the models because there are 4 in total. We have Huawei Mate 70, Huawei Mate 70 Pro, Huawei Mate 70 Pro Plus, and Huawei Mate 70 RS Ultimate Design. So let me tell you little by little all the features because there are some elements that are shared between these series members. So let's start with the colors because in both Mate 70 and Mate 70 Pro we will have green, violet, white, and black colors available. While in the Pro Plus model, there are some much more refined or more premium editions. Gold silk, silver, blue, white, and black. And finally, in Ultimate Design, we will see the white, black, and red design with a much more marked lines on this back cover that make it look more like a luxury device. The simplest model is 7.8 millimeters thick. The Pro model comes in at 8.2 millimeters thick, while the Pro Plus and Ultimate Design models go up to 8.25 millimeters. However, even in these, which are the thicker models, we still see a relatively compact design. The simplest model in the entire series weighs in at 203 grams. The Pro model comes in at 221 grams. Then the Pro Plus model, 226 grams. And in the Ultimate Design model, we will see differences depending on the color you choose because the red color is the heaviest with 256 grams, while the black and white edition weighs 251 grams. In the entire series, we see present Kunlun glass 2nd generation to have a very good resistance at the time of having a fall. But in both the Pro Plus and Ultimate Design models, we will see a central titanium frame that will surely also offer very good resistance. The screen of the base model is 6.7 inches, while the other members of the series have a larger screen of 6.9 inches. In both cases, we are talking about an OLED panel with full HD plus resolution, in all models with a variable refresh rate from 1 to 120 Hz. This speaks very well of Huawei because even in the simplest model of the entire series puts a screen of excellent quality. We will also find stereo sound, and regarding the operating system, remember that these devices have been presented in China. So they arrive with Harmony OS 4.2 with the promise that they will upgrade soon to Harmony OS 5, which is based on the next project. That is, they would completely forget about all the Android code. However, we don't know what the overall plan will be. They're probably close to releasing a next version of EMUI, but we don't know if it's going to continue to be based on Android or they're going to forget about all that code. I think this next step is going to be crucial for Huawei as to know the future of app compatibility. However, the Chinese manufacturer has debuted new artificial intelligence features on this model. For starters, there is a camera function that could capture the entire trajectory of some object or a person in multiple scenes so that it appears more or less cloned, showing the trajectory. Another function is to keep the focus on a single person even though there are many people around. This makes it much easier to take the picture of the specific person you are trying to photograph. It's useful especially if you're using the telephoto lens and suddenly there are a lot of people passing by because most cameras might get confused. But through artificial intelligence, it would be able to learn which person specifically you want to capture. There is also an artificial intelligence feature that enhances the texture of 10x zoom photos, but this is used with cloud technology. There is another tool that allows you to change the background on your lock screen, keeping you or some person in the foreground, very similar to what we see on the iPhone lock screen. A very interesting gesture that is also used with artificial intelligence is to take a screenshot by simply doing this gesture and then, without releasing your fist, you can drag it to another device and then in front of that other device you release it and boom, it's transferred. In fact, for this gesture, Richard Yu himself appeared in a promo a day before the launch of this product, so we already know that Mr. Richard Yu really likes to be in the limelight and he does it well. There's another artificial intelligence call feature that lets you translate calls into different languages in real time, as well as the traditional stuff like creating summaries of long texts or web pages. There are even options added to the power button when you press and hold it, also artificial intelligence. And there's even an AI messaging feature that could supposedly let you know if you're sending the right message to the right person or if you've made a mistake. I don't know how it would do it, but those are said to be its capabilities. It also integrates noise reduction when making calls, again, by artificial intelligence. And finally, also the device is able to detect if you are in an environment like an elevator or some other place where you need privacy so that other people don't hear what you are talking about, and it will automatically lower the volume. All of these new features are available throughout the new Mate 70 series, but let's move on to the specs. The base model and Pro model come with 12 gigabytes of RAM, while the Pro Plus and RS model have 16 gigabytes. In storage, the entire series has 512 gigabytes or 1 terabyte. And in the case of the base model and the Pro model, there is also a 256 edition. In the photographic system, we are going to see many similarities, but there will also be a clear difference. This time, Huawei exclusively reserves the HUAWEI sensors for the Pro Plus model and the RS model. That is, the base model and the Pro model will only use RGB sensors, which are simpler compared to what Huawei generally used throughout its lineup. The main camera on all models is 50 megapixels with variable aperture from f1.4 to f4.0 with optical stabilization. The difference will be in the quality of the sensor. For the ultra-wide camera, it is exactly the same, as we will find 40 megapixels with f2.2 aperture in all models. But the base model and the Pro model use RGB sensor, while the Pro Plus model and the RS model use RYYYB sensors. If you don't know what this type of sensor is, it means that they have red, yellow, yellow, blue instead of red, green, blue. And with these two yellow pixels, they allow for superior capture of illumination, so that with a single capture, without the need for a long exposure, they are able to collect a tremendous amount of light. Finally, in the telephoto camera, we will see more differences, since the base model has a 12 megapixel sensor, much simpler. In this case, we are talking about a lens with f-aperture 3.4 and optical stabilization. This lens is 125 millimeters, so the approximate optical zoom is 5.5x. That's why the aperture is not as bright, and possibly that's also why they have placed a sensor that is not as high resolution, because it has greater optical range. Huawei promises a maximum digital zoom of 50x for this model. On the other hand, from the Pro model upwards, we are going to find a camera of 92.5 millimeters, that is optical zoom approximate 4x. Interestingly, it is less zoom than the base model, but it has a much brighter aperture f2.1. And in addition to a better aperture, it has a 48 megapixel high-resolution sensor. Only the Pro model is an RGB sensor, while the Pro Plus and RS model have RYYB sensors. It is definitely a telephoto camera that shows very good capabilities because of the excellent lighting input it has. We will have to wait to test it once we get our hands on it. The front camera is 13 megapixels. In this case, it offers us f-aperture 2.4. Huawei continues with this trend of putting an ultra-wide camera on the front, although it is not specified at the moment if it has autofocus or not, but I would expect so, considering that in past models we have already found this feature. However, the base model does not integrate the depth sensor that it does integrate in its bigger siblings for advanced facial recognition. In batteries and charging, we will also find many differences. The base model has a 5300 mAh battery with support for 66 watts wired charging, 50 watts wireless, and 10 watts reverse wireless charging. On the other hand, the Pro model increases its capacity up to 5500 mAh, and the Pro Plus model along with the RS model increases up to 5700 mAh. And in these top three models, we will find charging up to 100 watts by cable, 80 watts wirelessly, and 20 watts with reverse wireless charging. All devices come with IP68 level of resistance against water and dust, but the simplest model has been tested to a depth of 4 meters, which in itself is already somewhat higher than what is generally tested in the industry, which is 1.5 meters. However, the Pro and higher models were tested to 6 meters depth. In fact, they are not only IP68 but also IP69, which allows them to withstand hot water jets. The base model and Pro model have Wi-Fi 6, while Pro Plus and RS have Wi-Fi 7. Across the series, we see Bluetooth 5.2, USB-C, 3.1, Gen 1. We also see NFC, infrared, and interestingly also on all models we see side fingerprint reader. I say that because remember that 3D facial recognition is also integrated in some of these models. So we see the two unlocking mechanisms, but now the fingerprint reader has not been integrated inside the screen as it had been handled in previous rumors. And finally, the processor. It is most mysterious since Huawei does not communicate it officially, but according to circulating in social networks, after several people have already been able to test this device, the processor is the Kirin 9020. There is still not much information regarding who manufactured this processor, in what manufacturing process it is built, and other data, so that we will learn as time goes on. For now, let me tell you about the pricing. The base model, in its simplest configuration, is priced starting at 5,499 yuan. That's roughly $760. Remember, it's just to give you an idea, because the prices here are not the same as over there. We go up a level, and the Pro model has an advertised price for China of 6,499 yuan. That's roughly $899. We don't yet know which models will be distributed, but it is likely that the Pro model will be the most widely distributed globally if it gets that distribution. The Pro Plus model has an announced price for China of 8,499 yuan. This is roughly $1,170. The increase from the Pro model to the Pro Plus model is quite substantial. And finally, the RS Ultimate Design model has an announced price for China of 11,999 yuan. This is roughly $1,650, but this one will possibly only be distributed in China. But just to give you an idea of how much it would cost you if you travel to China and want to buy it. As I told you, these devices have been presented in China, and we are still not sure if any of these models are going to have a global distribution or if all of them at the same time. Last year, it seems to me that Huawei only distributed the Pro model globally, so let's see what decision they make with this new generation. Yoda!